When you work at a place like 100 Huntley Street and Crossroads, you just kind of assume a couple of things about the people that you work with. One is that they're all Christians, and that is true. The other thing is that everybody's had a wonderfully perfect, amazing life with no problems, and then you begin to learn that's not true. People are people, and everybody has struggles. And today we're talking with someone who we walk by and interact with all the time. And today Tracy's here with her entire family to share a story that I know is going to resonate with a lot of you at home. First of all, guys, welcome to 100 Huntley Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, Tracy, you're in the center for a reason, because I believe that, like in a lot of homes, moms are at the center of the family. They are the heart of the family. Would you guys say that's the case?
Absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to talk about your experience as a family and how you came to faith. And it's not just a one-person story, or else you all wouldn't be here. So it's a journey that you've been on for a very long time. But like I said, we want to start with you, with the mom, because you went through some things as a child that made you decide that you wanted to raise your family differently, right?
Right.
Just be as vulnerable as you feel that you can be.
Yeah, well, my childhood was not a good one. Raised in a violent home. My father was an alcoholic. I think probably for me, at first, that was just something I thought every family dealt with. And then as I got older, I realized that there was something very wrong. And I think my coming to faith was because of that. When I think of the father that I had, I wanted something different. And so I feel like I ran to God once the opportunity presented itself, because I wanted that father.
Okay. And you wanted a different man in your life as well. And I think you were the ripe young age of 19 when you met this fine-looking man over here, Dennis. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true.
18, got married at 19.
Okay. And so he was different than the dad or the man that had been in your life before that. And how much, Dennis, of her past, of her family situation did you know as you guys spent time together?
Not a ton of it. I mean, I could see that her father could change his mood in a split second, right? So I knew something was going on there, and there was always alcohol in the home, and beer and wine and liquor, and I would always have a little drink with him every now and then. And but yeah, to the extent that it actually happened, no, I was not aware until later on in our married life, where we really got into it there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, fair enough. And so then you guys make this decision to want to have a different environment in your home. And Jay, where are you on the pecking order?
I'm firstborn.
Firstborn, come on, knock it out. There we go.
Right. Firstborn forever.
Firstborns. And so did you notice there was a difference in the way you were raised compared to what your mom had told you about her childhood?
Oh, yeah. As a grandchild of my grandfather, I had no clue about any of this. So, my home was an amazing home. We grew up, never really had a need for anything, played sports. It was a loving home. We went on family vacations, and I was never afraid of my family or my dad or my mom. So it was always a wonderful place. So hearing about the background as I was an older man, when my mom shared these stories with me, I had no clue.
Yeah. And sometimes people often say to me, oh man, I don't have a testimony because I was raised in a Christian home. My parents, were married, they were loving, there was no wild stuff happening in my home. But I think that's a misconception, because being raised in a home that's safe and secure and that follows Jesus, that's a wonderful testimony. And I know I was reading in your bio that you kind of went through some stuff in high school as you got towards the latter part of your career as a student. You said, I think it was sports and girls became the focus of your life. Is that, can you confirm that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. That was what my life was all about, sports and girls.
Okay, but there was one girl that you talk about that you started to date. Tell us a little bit about Your dad's laughing because he knows where this is going. But tell us about that.
Yeah, so unbeknownst to me, I started dating a girl in high school, and I didn't know until later on in the relationship that her father was a pastor of a church in the town that we were living in.
So you dated a PK.
I did. But I was dating her in her quote-unquote rebellion years. So I was her rebel.
Oh, you were, okay.
Yes. And so, I had went to her dad's church once or twice, and nothing really clicked there. That was the first time I was in that kind of a church, so that was a little different experience for me. But it didn't really click until she broke up with me in order to, reconcile her relationship with the Lord and with her family, and stop lying. And then that had a big impact on me. Yeah, because I didn't understand it. I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't know the Lord. I didn't grow up in a Christian family. So to hear that someone's breaking up with me for God was very confusing.
That would be. And I know that, Mom, you're kind of watching your boy go through some things. And sometimes parents get worried because their kids start getting into stuff they shouldn't get into and they don't want to go to church. But it was actually the opposite. You started to get concerned because he started going to church so often.
For sure.
You even threw the word cult around.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, tell us about that.
And I have to say that I loved the girl that he was dating, so I was as devastated as he was. But he was starting to attend church often, sometimes twice on a Sunday, and go to a weekly Bible study. So it seemed odd to me, and I was concerned. And I remember talking to some people at work about it, and them saying, "Oh, be careful! Just be careful. There's cults out there." So that was in my head. And I mean, when I think about it now, so many years later, it is almost embarrassing to think that he was.
Yeah, but at the time.
But at the time, I was genuinely concerned for him.
Okay, but then you started to notice changes in your son's life. I think both of you saw it, but you talked about it a little more, Tracy.
Yeah.
What kind of things did you see changing in him?
Well, he was much gentler when I stopped to realize the positive changes in him. He was a much gentler, certainly kinder, more grateful. I mean, I would have described Jay as a bit of a, I don't know if the word, like he was very cocky, very full
Confident.
Very confident.
Confident, that's good.
No, cocky was about right.
Oh, okay. I was trying to help you out, Jay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Very full of himself. So the change was dramatic for me to see that now he's caring about other people. And yeah, it was a big enough change that it got my attention.
Okay, and did Dad notice that as well
Dad
from a
said,
distance?
"You better get over there and check out the church and see what's going on." That's what Dad was saying.
You sent her to go check it out.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, we'll get to you in a second, sir. Don't get too comfortable. Now, you're starting to attend the church, and you're starting to hear the messages, and they're resonating with you. So
Yeah.
the chain reaction is a little different here. Usually, one of the parents comes to know the Lord, and then the kids go. But God did it differently in your family.
Totally. Yeah, it didn't take long. I mean, the reason I started going to the church, to be honest, was to make her mad.
To get back at her.
To get back at her, because she broke up with me
awesome.
for God, and I was like, well, I'll show her. I'll get to know this God.
It's God.
And so, so it didn't take long, though. I was only there a couple Sundays, and I think because of her breaking up with me did such a work inside of me, and it broke my pride, actually. No girl had ever broken up with me before. So as you could hear, I was a cocky, prideful jock, and so when she broke up with me, it caused me to really kind of go into a bit of an inner crisis. And as I'm attending the church, I'm asking questions, new questions, never asked before, like, what is truth? What is my purpose? What is the meaning of life?
Big question.
Big questions that I would never think about to ask before that. And then as I was listening to the pastor preach, all I could start thinking about was, maybe this is my answer. Maybe it's Jesus that I need to answer some of these big questions, because my heart was in turmoil. And I still didn't quite understand, to break up with someone for God still didn't make sense in my mind.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get to how your mom and dad came to faith, but something that really struck me about your story is that your ex's dad had been praying for you.
Yes,
and that's kind of a different experience too.
Yeah, it was actually kind of wild, because on the Sunday that I did kind of give my heart to the Lord, I'm at the front. As a young man, crying was not a cool thing, first of all.
Right.
I don't just hang out on the weekends and cry with my buddies. So that was a very shocking thing for me. God was doing something. And so I came to the front, and one of the first things the pastor said to me was, "I've been praying for you for like a year." I can't remember the exact time. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but that's awesome. So, yeah.
Okay, so then you guys start to notice a change in him. Dad sends mom out to spy out the land. And so what starts happening in you as you're attending church now?
Well, the first thing was him inviting me. That was like, I felt very Yes,
Okay.
Jason invited me, and I was like, wow, he wants me to go with him. That's
Very cool.
You know, he's 18, 19 years old. You don't want your mom around. So I was touched that he wanted me to go. And then I thought it's a really good opportunity to see what's going on over there. And so I was immediately shocked at when I entered the church. The music was very uplifting. It wasn't what I thought I was going to hear or what I had heard as a child a few times that I did attend. And it's just positive and joyful. I felt it immediately. And then, Jason was sitting in the front row and he started praising the Lord. Like his hands were in the air. He was even jumping up and down. And I remember thinking, what on earth is happening over there? So I naturally continued to go. And one of the next thing that I really noticed was him up front, locked arm in arms, praying with Matt, praying with his best friend. And I immediately got concerned. And I thought, what could be wrong in his life that he needs to be praying like that?
That much.
Yeah, because I was a very involved mom and I had to know everything. And I know that came from my past.
Not a lie.
No, that came from my past. I didn't want my kids to hurt ever because of how I was hurt. And so I was just stunned so I actually said, when I got home the next day, I finally phoned him and said, Jay, like, what's going on? What were you and Matt praying about? And he chuckled actually and said, what do you think we were praying about? And I said, well, this is crazy, but I think you were praying for me. And he said, that's exactly what we were praying for. And I just remember being so moved by that.
Love that.
Yeah, so that was the beginning for sure, that I needed to try to figure out what was happening and that it was real.
Okay, and I think, did I read, was it at a Christmas Eve service that you actually made the commitment to follow Jesus?
Yeah, so that was probably 2 months later. And it's the same pastor whose daughter was preaching when Jay committed his life. And so he didn't say you had to get up and come up to the front, which is, I think, instrumental in why I went up. He just said, if you want to know Jesus, just right where you're sitting, raise your hand. And I really felt like supernaturally my hand went up because I didn't have to move. Yeah, and it was quite an incredible experience because, the pastor always says, everybody bow their heads.
Close
and
their eyes.
so many people after said, congratulations to me.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I think I heard afterwards that Terry, that pastor, did that altar call because I had reached out to him once, and he knew that I was going through it. The Holy Spirit was at work in me.
Okay.
Because I had sent him an email, and he had responded immediately and just said, I can't promise what, because my concern was Dennis, right?
Sure.
Like I've been married to him at this point for, most of my life, more than, and I just thought, what's this going to do to our marriage? If I take this step, I'm an all-in type of girl. And so I knew if I took that step, I was concerned with the changes that might happen in our lives.
Okay.
But I really felt like I didn't have much control over it.
Okay, Dennis, so you're watching, first your son's jumping up at the altar praying, and now your wife's lifting up her hands and going forward. So what's Dennis thinking? What's he seeing happening in the lives of his son and his wife?
I mean, right away, the two of them, just this closeness that they had, deep conversations, just wondering all the time, what are they talking about? What's are they so involved in that I don't know about, right? So, I just thought that the God was probably at that time working in me, right? That the Holy Spirit was working and that He was drawing me closer. Okay,
but what was your moment? We've heard their moments. What was the Dennis moment where you said, okay, I got to surrender?
Oh, wow.
So I had, just to interrupt for a second, I had changed churches by this point. So this is 3 years in, and I actually felt Dennis wouldn't fit in the way I'd hoped at the church. Okay. So I had intentionally changed churches. And
to a place where you thought he would identify with more?
Yes.
Okay.
And he first, when he came, it was, your dad got sick. So that's what started it.
Yeah, I mean, my dad did get sick in December of that year with heart failure, kidney failure. And Yeah, it just, we went to the hospital and they told us that we needed to get my dad's orders and affairs in order so that he was probably going to pass away. So that night we go home and I said to Trace, all I wanted is to get through Christmas because my mom, it was her favorite time of year, right?
Oh,
she,
okay.
Yeah, she just
You needed a
loved
Christmas
it.
miracle.
Absolutely. So I just said, I just want him to get through Christmas, and I don't want her to always remember his death at Christmas, right? So, so she prayed exactly that, and so I think then we probably had Pastor Terry come around my dad, and once Trace asked, she said, "Do you think Pastor Terry would your dad would mind if he prayed for you?" So we did. We gathered around, and Terry just prayed that this man would be healed by Jesus, and that would show him real, right? So, sure enough, later on that month, his kidneys began to work again, and
Wow.
and his heart was good, and he came home for Christmas, and
that spoke to you.
saying that my dad come back from almost death, something's going on there. That's got to be God working the miracle that we prayed for, right?
I love that God did it differently for all of you, and the circumstances were so unique. He uses an ex to get you to church out of rebellion. Concern for your son joining a cult got you to church.
Yeah.
And then your dad being sick and not wanting your mom to have a bad memory during Christmas. And he did it for all of you in different ways. And now you're a family that's serving the Lord. I know you joined YWAM. You served overseas. You were in Taiwan for, 5 or 6 years?
Yep.
You served in Vancouver. And now you're pastoring right here in Southern Ontario, all
Yeah.
because
Amen.
Yep.
of a breakup.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So ladies, you should think about that. Ladies should think about that, right? Yeah.
No, it's amazing how God has worked in all of your lives. And thank you for being transparent and sharing, your story in such a public setting. And I know that it's spoken to people. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having us.
Yeah, and to anybody watching today, maybe you've been praying for a family member. I know that, Tracy, you prayed for your hubby for years. My mom prayed 13 years for my dad to come to church until he started coming. So never stop praying. Keep believing because God can do it.